Well, hey everybody, my name is Steve, and I am your prison location pastor. So if I don't look familiar, that might actually be a good thing. I want to take this special moment to thank our pastor, David, for allowing me the opportunity to come up here and share what God's been teaching with you today. So as we're here, I want to welcome everybody at our east and west locations, everybody joining us online across the world. Welcome. All my brothers over at RCMU. Guys, I'm glad you're here today. I miss you guys. I'll be back next week. But I have a very special welcome this week because for the very first time over at Juvenile Services Center, the fellas in Cell Block A are going to be joining us through this entire series. They've been with us, and they're here. So, fellas, I'm glad you're here. Put down your cards and give me an ear. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And so, today, I'm going to be talking about what I believe is probably the most vital life hack that we can talk about, and that is how to recover. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you're close to was struggling through something? Maybe they were struggling with an addiction. Maybe they were fighting through the loss of someone close to them. Maybe they just needed someone to talk to. Did you know what to do? Hopefully today, I can help you to know what to do in the future. But more than that, I want you to walk out of this understanding that most of us make mistakes in this life. It's just part of life. We make mistakes, and then we have to recover from them. And so I hope that through this series, I can share some of what I've learned and help you in the future to be able to help someone walk out recovery or to be able to walk out recovery yourself. Now, if you don't already know, we are one location, we are one church that meets in multiple locations. And one of those locations takes place in our local minimum security prison. Every week we walk into that prison and we transform their visit room into a church. We lay down carpets, we set up a stage and screens and a soundboard, and a band comes in, and it becomes a new place. And at that location, about 60 guys come into that location, and they attend and they serve there. They call Fountain Springs their home, because here's what you have to understand about our prison location, is this isn't just some prison ministry where we come in and we tell guys how to stop screwing up, how to be good people, and then we walk out and we've done our duty as Christians and we feel good about ourselves and we're done for the week. We walk this out with them. It's a real location, just like our east and west locations. They have volunteers who serve. They've got a next steps area. They've got greeters and ushers and their location pastor. And they are learning to walk in relationship with Jesus. And so as I walk through recovery with them, as I counsel these guys and walk them through 12-step programs like Celebrate Recovery, and as I help them transition from prison to society, I get to see very real, very genuine, and powerful life change every single day. And so as I was preparing this message, I got finished writing it and realized I had about an hour and a half of stories of people who I've seen their life change. And I had about 30 minutes of sermon, and I imagine as much fun as that would be, as much as I would enjoy sharing that with you, you probably don't want me keeping you here for 2 hours. So I decided to stick to just one. And so I want to tell you about my friend Dan. Now, Dan's childhood was a little bit rough. His dad walked out on him when he was really young. His mom couldn't handle him, and so he ended up living with his grandparents. And he's told me about what a great home that was, about how his grandparents took care of him and how much he looks up to them. And those were the best years of his childhood. But he was still getting into trouble. He got into a lot of fighting and partying and life wasn't going the way it should for a young man. But here's the thing about Dan. He's one of those big guys that you look at him and you see him on the street and you know that guy's got to be a football player. And here's the thing about Dan. Dan ended up going to Grand Valley State University on a full-ride football scholarship. Life was looking up. He had hope. He had a future ahead of him, and things were looking good. But then one day, something happened. Dan was driving down the highway in his van, and he came to this part of the road where it was a narrow two-way road with water surrounding either side. And as he came down this road, a woman coming the other way went into diabetic shock, and her vehicle spun out of control and drifted into his side of the road. She clipped his back end, and Dan's vehicle spun. And as it spun, it entered oncoming, and a 19-year-old girl drove straight into his vehicle. She died on impact. Dan will tell you that he had to live with that every single day. Not just the reality that he killed a girl and there was nothing he could do about it. But you see, that girl was the older sister of one of Dan's close friends. And in the aftermath of the accident, his friend and the community around him were upset. He started facing daily threats. He started being called a killer and a murderer. And the community around him turned on him. But she wasn't the only thing that died that day. Dan doesn't remember most of the accident. He says it happened so fast I didn't know what was happening. But after he collided with her car, his van flipped over the top of her car and rolled 3 times. And he woke up in a hospital. The ligaments in Dan's knee had been crushed underneath the dashboard and were torn apart. And Dan was told that he would never play football again. In an instant, Dan lost everything. He lost his scholarship. He lost his friends. He lost his future. His world started spinning out of control. And in an attempt to try and cover up the pain, the emotional pain that he was feeling from what was going on, he started abusing the pain pills they were giving him. And pretty soon the pain pills stopped helping. And so he went on from pain pills to heroin. And when the heroin stopped working, he moved on from heroin to methamphetamines, and his life spun out of control. He went from a world of a future and hope to a world of fighting, of drug dealing, of drug use. And eventually, he found himself in a prison in South Dakota. And when he came to RCMU, he connected with some people who invited him to Fountain Springs Church. And he started coming, and just like most of us, he came and he sat in a seat and he listened and then he left. And that went on for a while. But let me tell you something. Over the last year, I've seen so much change come over Dan as he's pressed into a relationship with Jesus. He started coming to celebrate recovery in the prison and pressing into a real relationship with Jesus. He started inviting other people down. Now Dan serves at the prison. He helps us set up and tear down every single week. He even takes extra time on Sunday morning to go up and down the hallways, waking guys up who are oversleeping for church. He is constantly thinking about the people around him before himself, where he will tell you before he was one of the most selfish people there were. And just a few months ago, I got to baptize Dan in prison. See, Dan's story could have ended with Life didn't go the way it should have. Things happened that should have. My life spun out of control and I wound up in prison. But it's not ending there, because he found a relationship with Jesus and he's walking out something different. See, you may not realize this, but in our church, we have gang members. We have drug dealers. We have con men. We have all sorts of people finding out about Jesus and walking out a relationship with him, walking towards him. We've seen men accept Christ in prison. We've baptized dozens of men in prison. And now, after almost 3 years at RCMU, at every single location that we have, at every single service that we have men who once lived at RCMU serving on our teams. Praise God. Now, you might be thinking, well, sure, Steve, it's really, really easy to see how those guys need recovery. But I've never done drugs. I've never been arrested. I've never done anything illegal. Let me tell you something. I've seen some of the way some of y'all drive. Okay, that's not true. But here's the truth, is we all make mistakes. We all do dumb things, and we have to recover from that. Let me tell you something, okay? I'm a dad. I have 2 boys, a 5-year-old, and my younger son will be 3 soon, and we've got a little girl on the way in October. Please pray for me. I don't know what to do with a girl. I'm a boy dad. But on the 4th of July, we were at a friend's house, and we were hanging out, and my oldest son, my 5-year-old Jack, was playing with this rubber snake. You know those rubber snakes that are so real that if you set them under somebody's chair, they're going to jump about 10 feet? So he's playing with this thing, holding it by the tail and kind of dangling it around. And me being who I am, I thought I had a great idea, and I walked up by him, and I grabbed the snake by the head and went in his face. And right at that moment, I realized this was a really bad decision. As my son ran away and hid, and he was standing back away from me, kind of cautiously watching me with this thing. And then I had to recover from that decision that I made. I had to spend some time explaining to my 5-year-old, it's not real, Jack. See, it's not real. No, it's not dead, Jack. It's rubber. It's fake. And we got through that. And then he had a lot of fun with that toy, running around scaring other people. And now he loves snakes. And now I probably have to recover with my wife. But I made a poor decision, and then I had to recover from it. See, Paul addresses this in a letter he wrote to the Romans. He says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." See, now I'm not a scholar or an expert. I don't know all the Greek and the Hebrew like David does, and he gives us all this great information. So I did a little bit of studying, though. I did some research. And do you know what that word all means in the original Greek? That word all. You want to know what it means? It means all. But really, all, everyone. Everyone has sinned and falls short of the glory of God. We all make mistakes. None of us is perfect. So today I want to dig into this story from the Bible that takes place in a town called Jericho. And in Jericho, there's a man named Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a pretty big deal. And most of the time when people like me talk about Zacchaeus, that's not what we're talking about. So if you've been in church for a while, I hope you pick up something new here. But Zacchaeus was kind of a big deal. He was a tax collector, but not just a tax collector. He was the chief tax collector. His job was to go and collect what you owed the government, but the government allowed him the freedom to say, well, this is how much I want to make, so I just tack it on to what you owe me, and you have to pay it or I'll put you in jail. That sounds like a pretty good deal to some of us, right? He was a pretty big deal. I want you to think for a minute of our politicians today. I know we grumble a little bit. We don't like politicians. But think about this. Our politicians today look like they've got it all together. They've got the big house. They've got the wife who's wearing the latest fashion trends. Their kids look like they want for nothing. They look like they've got it all together. Zacchaeus was a guy who looked like he had it all together. He was wealthy. He had a prestigious job. It wasn't an honest job, but it was a prestigious job. People did not like Zacchaeus, but if I had to take a guess, I would say that they probably wanted what he had. They didn't like him, but they probably wanted what he had. So when Jesus comes to town, when he walks into Jericho, Zacchaeus wants to see him. And so Zacchaeus goes out, and he can't see through the crowd. So instead of fighting his way to the front of the crowd, Zacchaeus does something a little odd, and he goes up the road a little ways, and he climbs a tree. That seems just a little weird to me. I mean, is that not weird? If a politician came to town today and we saw someone go and climb a tree, we would think that was weird. That'd be odd. It seems a little strange, a little desperate to me. It seems like Zacchaeus felt like something was missing, and just maybe this Jesus guy could help him with it. You see, sometimes the most put together people are the most empty. And I think we can relate. We've gotten that promotion, the diploma, the new car, and something felt off. We've been in an argument with our spouse maybe, and we had to bring up something from the past, something we knew would hurt them in order to win. But we won. And let's be honest, winning feels good, right? In the moment, it felt good to win, but we knew something wasn't right. Something in our heart was still pulling us back. So I want you to see what this story says next as we walk into this. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and he called him by name. Now I want you to remember that he called him by name. That's important. So hang on to that, okay? Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Now you remember that? He called him by name. Jesus walked into a new town he hadn't been in, saw a weirdo up in a tree and called him by his name. He knew his first name. He knew everything about him. He knew every lie, every penny he'd stolen, everything he'd ever done, and he called him anyway. See, God doesn't define us by our past. So the story goes on. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to the house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be the house of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. See, I can relate to Zacchaeus. Something you need to know about me is I married way, way up. If you've ever met my wife, you know this. I married way, way up. I married my best friend. We started dating when I was a junior in high school, and we dated for 4 years and then got married. And on August 7th, it will have been 7 years that we've been married. And I am very, very excited about that. But about 4 years ago, I had to have the most difficult discussion of my life. I had to sit my wife down, and I had to explain to her that I was an addict. I had to tell her that I'd been lying to her for 7 years. You see, I was addicted to pornography, and I had been for most of my life. Now, I have to stop here for just one moment and address this. If you currently view pornography, and I'm not just talking to the men in the room, okay? This is something that affects both men and women. If you currently view pornography, please stop kidding yourself. It's not a small thing. It's not something you do in private and doesn't affect everyone else. Pornography is one of the most destructive forces in our world. Pornography is one of the most dangerous addictions in existence. It will destroy your family. It will destroy your relationships. It will destroy your job. Pornography has the power to take everything from you, and I tell you that from experience. And for the young people, students especially in this room today, if you think you will quit when you get married, you're wrong. I told myself that over and over again. I lied to myself over and over again. So if you are in that place, please seek help. Talk to someone on staff here. Come to Celebrate Recovery, where we can help you walk through this. Find the freedom that God has for you. I remember the look in my wife's eyes as I explained to her what I had done. As I looked at her in the eyes, and I told her that I had betrayed her. And Katie looked me square in the eyes. And I saw the hurt behind those eyes. But I also saw love. I saw the love there as she looked me in the eye and she said, "You were forgiven before you ever did it." Those were her exact words. You were forgiven before you ever did it. And that night, Katie showed me grace, the same way that Jesus shows Zacchaeus grace here in this story. See, God's grace doesn't follow our rules. It doesn't make sense to us. Katie had every right to leave me at that point. She had every right to walk away because I had lied and betrayed her. I had hurt her. I had done something despicable, and she had every right to walk away from me. The same way, Jesus had every right to keep on walking past Zacchaeus. Jesus had every right to condemn Zacchaeus for his actions, but he didn't. He called him instead. Because God knows everything we have ever done, every secret, every lie, everything. And he stands in the gap anyways and offers a second chance because he is the God of second chances. So as we go on in this story, it says, "Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, 'I will give half my wealth to the poor, and if I have cheated people,'" notice he doesn't deny it. He says, "If I have cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much." Jesus responded to him, "Salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost." So I want you to see the lesson that's hidden in this story. Because I think the story of Zacchaeus gives us a perfect roadmap on how to recover. So I believe there are 5 steps that are covered in this story, 5 steps that'll help us learn how to recover. And the first of those is to seek. You see, Zacchaeus didn't just sit around on his couch hoping things will change. He didn't just sit back going, well, I'm right and everybody else is wrong and my life will change if I just sit here and wait for it to. He got up off his couch, he walked out the door and climbed a stinking tree to meet Jesus. You see, we will always be stuck if we think we're always right. If we don't consider that maybe there's a better way. So the second step, I believe, is to accept. Zacchaeus didn't hesitate when he heard Jesus. For me, I think I would have been afraid if I heard Jesus calling my name, but Zacchaeus didn't hesitate. In fact, do you remember what he said? It said, he quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. We need to accept the truth. Jesus knows everything. Whether you want to believe it or not, Jesus knows everything you've ever done, and he calls you anyway. He loves you anyway. The third step is to admit. See, Zacchaeus admits that he's done something wrong. Remember that? He said, if I've cheated people, he doesn't say that he didn't cheat people. He says, if I cheated people, I'll pay them back. He admits that he did something wrong. And here's the thing, any 12-step program you ever see anywhere, one of the most vital steps is to admit that there's a problem, because we can't focus on a relationship with Jesus while we're pretending that nothing ever happened. We can't focus on a relationship with Jesus while we're pretending that the past never happened. The next step, step 4, is to make amends. And this is the part that I find most amazing, most incredible about Zacchaeus' story, is the ferocity with which he attacks making an amends. And did you notice, no one told him to do this. No one said, hey, you need to make up for what you did first. Jesus doesn't say, hey, go get yourself together and then come back and I'll call you. Jesus calls him and then he makes his amends of his own volition. But look at what he does. He says, I'll give half my wealth to the poor, and anyone I've cheated, I'm going to give them back 4 times what I took from them. Now, I don't know how you are at math. I'm not great, but I'm pretty sure he's broke at this point. I'm pretty sure he just gave up everything. What a way to make your amends. He gave it all. See, the Bible is very, very clear on this. It says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. There it is again, all, everyone. Live at peace with everyone. So this is going to mean sometimes saying you're sorry. Sometimes it's going to mean paying back what you've taken from someone. Couples, can I give you a hand here? Sometimes it's going to mean letting it go, even though you know you're not wrong. You're welcome. I just helped your marriage. The last step, I believe, is the most important. And that is to live in relationship. See, here's the thing that I've learned working in the prison and in Celebrate Recovery, is that all those things that we can see on the outside, the addiction, the grief, the overeating, all of those things that we see, that we look at and go, that's the problem, those are symptoms. They all have something in common. And it's a hurt in our heart. And when we go after the heart, when we treat the heart instead of the symptom, we start to see life change. Because what I've learned is that if a person really chases after a relationship with Jesus, a real, honest relationship with Jesus, and they start focusing on Jesus, the more they focus on Jesus, the less they focus on the mistakes that they're making, the less they focus on their addiction. The more they look to Jesus, the less they look over here, because when you're looking over here, you can't see what's over here. And those things start to fall away. When I tell people what I do for a living, when I tell people that I'm a prison pastor, I almost always get the same response. They almost always say, man, that must be really hard. And it frustrates me. I said, no, not at all. I love what I do. I love what I get to do. Here's why they think that, though. Because the media has done a phenomenal job of making us think that the incarcerated are a bunch of monsters, that they're a menace to society, that they're after you, they are out to get you, they are going to hurt you. Hide your children. Lock your doors. We've seen the billboards, right? Wanted, do not approach. Do you want to know the truth? The truth is that the incarcerated are people who've made mistakes. The only difference between us and them is that they got caught. In fact, I've got a story that I really want to share with you about a good friend of mine named John, who once was living that life, who has been there, but God got a hold of him, and he's doing some amazing things in him. So take a look. And we'll show a video. And then I'll come back. So maybe today, you're where John used to be. Maybe today, you're feeling lost. You're feeling like you don't know what to do. You're struggling with something and you don't know how to get out of it. But you know that this craziness, this insanity has to stop. Maybe you're stuck in a life of addiction. Maybe you can't get past the loss of a loved one. Maybe right now you don't know why there's something that is controlling you. Maybe you are one of those people who's struggling with pornography right now, and you don't know how to get free of it. And it's got its teeth in you, and you can't get away. You feel like a prisoner. I want to give you an opportunity today to let Jesus come into that, to let him help you through that, to take hold of the freedom that comes from a relationship with Jesus. And if you're not there yet, but you think maybe it is time. Maybe this is the way. Just like Zacchaeus, maybe you're looking, going, maybe, just maybe, Jesus can get me out of this. I'm going to give you some words. If you're ready to let Jesus be a part of your life, I'm going to pray these words, and I ask you to just pray them in your heart with me. Let Jesus into your life. God, I thank you that we're here. I thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I ask that you just bless my words, that you would move through me, that hearts would be touched through me today. And I ask that our hearts and our minds would be open. And so, God, for these people who are ready to make a decision today, for these people who are ready to let you into their lives today, I want to offer these words, Lord. Jesus, I have tried to do this life myself. I have tried to make something of this life by myself. Over and over I've failed. Over and over I've been hurt. And it feels like there's no way out. But Jesus, I need help. Jesus, I need you. Please help me. I am ready to let you in. And so here today, Jesus, I declare that I believe that you came, that you were the Son of God, that you died for the forgiveness of all of my sins, and that you rose. Jesus, come into my heart. Give me freedom and peace. And God, I ask that as a church today, you would be opening our minds and allowing us to see the hurts that are buried in our hearts that we can only take care of with your help, that we can only overcome with your grace. And God, I ask that you would help us to overcome those hurts, to put you first and to focus on you instead of the things over here. Jesus, we love you and we praise you. Amen. A little long.